Hello, I'm Stephen Collins speaking to you from Sarnia, Ontario. And this video is mostly about harmonics, but it also deals with proportions, with notation, and with playing in tune on your violin. And at the end of the video, I'm going to do something kind of crazy just for fun. So stick around. I'd be willing to bet that you'll, even if you played for a long time, you'll learn something that you didn't know. I really bet so. I've been teaching violin for about 35 years and I love teaching. And I think one of the things that we could do with violin teaching is to make it a little bit more playful and to discover the violin as if it were just invented yesterday. And I say that because I have a lot of students that come in, you know, even advanced students, they come in for help or whatever. And we invariably find some basic things that they don't know, some little holes in their foundation. And so I'm going to talk to you about harmonics, and we all know what harmonics are. We think of them as this type of thing. So what's a harmonic? The way we think of it as a division of the string. So if we go back to the time of Pythagoras, Pythagoras lived about 500 years before Christ, and he developed all of Western music because he's the one that figured out if you take a vibrating string or a column of air and you divide it into different ratios, you get different pitches from that. So in Pythagorean terminology, the entire string vibrating from the nut to the bridge would be called, he would call that the first harmonic. And then when you divide the string into two equal pieces, you measure the string from the nut to the bridge and find exactly the middle point. Put your finger there, touch it to kill the vibration, make a nodal point. You get the octave. And then so on. The third gives you an octave and a fifth. And so let's do some of those. So here's the whole string, and divide the string into two, you get the octave. Divide the string into three, the octave and the fifth. So what is that? There's the octave. Up a fifth. That's this one. Now, if half of a string is an octave, then half of a half, which is a quarter, ought to be another octave. And it is. So here we go. Where our third finger is, that's two octaves. That's a quarter of the string. Or here. Now, what some people are not aware is that you can get the same harmonic here or here. I'm also a violist, and there's a spot in the Bartók viola concerto that some people have trouble with, where you have to go from the half string to the quarter string. It goes like this. And a lot of people try to execute that like this. You don't need to lift this finger. Because you're dividing the string into two and then into four. So both of those are nodal points. You could do it this way too. Holding that finger. Okay, so that's one little tidbit. So if you have a node, you can kill the nodes at any of those points. And that's why we can get similar harmonics here and here. That's 1/5 of the string. So we have a half the string, a third of the string, a quarter, and a fifth. So I can get that one here because that's also a fifth of the string. Now I've made a chart here, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about this as it pertains to the construction of the violin. I'm going to put this down a little bit, and notation. So the nut is here and the bridge being down here. So when you divide the string in half, that's your octave harmonic. And we know that we get the same pitch there if we hold this note down. Excuse me there. So you can hold it down and play just the one segment of the string, or touch it at the nodal point and have two segments of string. When you hold the string down at where the B would be, that's a third of the string. And another little tidbit, that also coincides with the curvature of the neck. So where the neck turns, on a modern violin. On a Baroque one, it might be a little bit different in there, but that's going to be your fourth position, or your 1/3 of the string length. And then where the third finger goes, that's a quarter of the string. Where the high second finger goes, that's a 1/5 of the string. And then, just as I mentioned before, when you get the bigger partials, the smaller partials, the partials with the higher numbers, then you get into some interference because, a quarter of the string might be this long, and a 1/5 of the string that long, and a 1/6 this long. So you'll have points that start to interfere with each other. So when I try to play those different harmonics, sometimes I might bump into the wrong one. Now what if I went... I can't make it wrong today. I practice my finger postures too much. Sometimes we'll mix up. There's the 6th and the 7th. No, I can't get that one. And you'll hear it's a little bit out of tune because we're so used to the tempered scale that we're not used to this, what we call just intonation. So the octaves will sometimes sound a little bit flat to our ears. The 5ths will sound a little bit too big. But anyway, if you use these things to help you play in tune, then it will really develop your ear and your tone. So I wanted to mention one thing, I'm jumping around a little bit here, but I wanted to mention something about notation, and that there's a little bit of a trick here. We all know that this E, first finger on the, I'll use my pointer here, first finger on the D string is notated on the first ledger line, and the octave above that is the top space, like that. And most of us don't have too much trouble when we get up to here, to the 3 ledger lines above, for the octave above that. But when we get to this E, and we see this, sometimes less advanced players have a real hard time. They have to start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many lines are there? Well, there's a really neat trick. And that trick I learned out of a book by a man named Robert Gurley called The Art of Practicing the Violin. What you do is you take 2 ledger lines and then you superimpose another staff on top of the one you have. So that's why I drew this staff in blue here and drew it again here in blue. Well, this E, if that blue one is 3 ledger lines above, that's like this. It looks exactly like this E. And this one here looks exactly like that E. That looks the same as this one. That's a really cool trick. So you can figure out, okay, that one, if it was a line, would be a note. A D, would be a D. Or if you're going up to here, that's a B. So you just superimpose that with your eye, and it can help you sight read up high if you're under pressure. Another thing about proportions is that we all know that the harmonic, the octave harmonic is over the body, but some people are not quite aware that the C sharp usually coincides with a particular proportion of the body, so that that winds up right there. If you put your 3rd finger there, you're going to get that major 6th above the body. So that's where that is, right where the body joins. And then also where the neck turns, that's your 4th position. Okay, so now let's talk just a little bit about intonation and what we listen for. So I teach even if I have a 5-year-old or 4-year-old and they're learning fingered notes, they learn about that harmonic. And I show them that you can take even a pencil, take a pencil like this and set it on there. Or you can take a little skewer. Or take a business card. It's a knife edge. So that's a revelation to some people because they have got too much pad on the string. So it's just barely touching. Now I'm having trouble. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. If your strings are getting old, like mine are, and you have you've worn them a little bit and they are not uniform in their construction anymore, you will have trouble with your harmonics. And sometimes if you're playing advanced repertoire like that, it's good to keep fresh strings on. That's why strings are so expensive, because they're engineered so precisely, and so that they split into the various pieces like that. Okay, so if I'm playing this D, so I have one segment of string because I've stopped the note here. This is vibrating between the finger and the bridge. And then that excites the harmonic of the string below into two pieces. So that's two additional pieces of string. So that's 3. And then if I do the third here, 1/3 of the string here, that makes 3 pieces of string. So now I have 6 pieces of string ringing with it. That's why that's so resonant. Okay, and all notes on your violin resonate somewhere in the instrument. Like if I'm playing an F sharp here, that's going to resonate up high with this one. Or your B here, it can be here or here. They all resonate somewhere. So let's just step back again and just talk one more time slowly about the harmonics and what they produce. So the whole string, Pythagoras' first harmonic is the fundamental tone, G. Half of the string, an octave. 1/3 of the string, an octave plus a fifth. Quarter of the string, 2 octaves. 1/5 of the string is 2 octaves and the third. So, and then 1/6 of the string is 2 octaves and a fifth, because it's just 1/6 is like 1/3 of the string. So we have, and then, so you hear that? Missed that one there. So those are close together. So it is difficult because they're both high second fingers, as it were. And then this one is the 7th, and sounds very flat. And then 1/8 of the string is another octave, as we up there. Okay, so now I promised you I would do something crazy. So what I wanted to show is, what I wanted to ask is, how would we do this with a guitar? With a guitar. Okay, harmonics with the guitar. So you can do them with a guitar. So I hope you had fun with that. I hope you learned something new about notation, about playing in tune, about Pythagoras, and about having fun with your violin. Take your violin and explore it and find out where these different harmonics are. And start listening to yourself really carefully and see what rings in your violin. Make sure you have good strings. Make sure your instrument is set up well. Take it to a good luthier if it's not. Invest in good strings. It's worth it. And have fun. And we'll talk more about the bow sometime, about how that pertains to harmonics too. But I think that's enough for today. So feel free to comment if you like these videos. Leave a comment. Say that you like them. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Sometimes if you're on Facebook, it doesn't go on the YouTube algorithm, so it's different. But you can look them up on YouTube as well. So join me again. Thanks a lot.